5 years, $2 million, 17 specialists flown in from 3 continents, and Evelyn's Ferrari still sat in the garage. 0:077 seconds like an unsolvable equation. Cold, silent, untouched by all of it, no one could explain why that legendary engine refused to start. Not one spark, not one. 0:1616 second sound, not a single breath of life from beneath that hood since the day she inherited it. Until the afternoon, when Evelyn finally ran out of patience. 0:23 seconds turned across the garage floor toward the man holding a mop in the corner, and said, "What about you? Do you dare even try?" No one in that room knew what was. 0:32 seconds coming. Follow right now. The story behind this Ferrari is something you will not believe until you hear it for yourself. Meridian Motorworks occupied. 0:41 seconds the ground floor of a converted industrial building on the west side of Los Angeles. And it was nothing like the grimy repair shops most people pictured. 0:48 seconds when they heard the word garage. The floors were polished to a mirror finish. 0:53 seconds the lighting was precise and cool. The air carried the faint mingled scent of leather and premium machine oil, and every vehicle inside was treated less. 1:011 1 second like property and more like a museum exhibit. Clients paid for that atmosphere as much as they paid for the work. It was the kind of place where 1:091 9 seconds people brought things they could not afford to lose. And it was where Evelyn came every Monday morning without fail, not to manage anything or instruct. 1:181 18 seconds anyone, but simply to stand beside a car she had been unable to start for 5 years and feel whatever it was she felt in those minutes before she turned around and went back to the rest of her life. 1:291 29 seconds Evelyn was 41 years old. She ran Holloway & Crane, one of the most respected architectural design firms on the West Coast. And in every 1:361 36 seconds professional context she inhabited, she was the person who moved first, spoke clearest, and left a room knowing more than she had when she entered. She was 1:451 45 seconds not a woman who allowed problems to outlast her attention. She was precise in her language, deliberate in her decisions, and disciplined in the way. 531 53 seconds she held the line between what she felt and what she chose to show. These qualities had built everything she had, except for one thing. They had not been 2:022 2 seconds able to touch at all. The Ferrari 250 GTO had belonged to her father. It was a 1963 model, one of fewer than 40. 102 10 seconds examples still confirmed to exist in the world, and its body was finished in Rosso Corsa, a red so deep and particular it seemed to shift color depending on where. 2:192 19 seconds the light touched it. The chrome along the vents had dulled slightly over the decades, and the leather inside had taken on the specific softness of 2:272 27 seconds something that had been handled and loved for a very long time before being left to wait. Her father had died 5 years earlier and the car had come to 2:342 34 seconds her through his estate, arriving at Meridian on a flatbed in late autumn, and from that first day it had never once started. She did not love cars. She 2:432 43 seconds had never been interested in racing or engineering or the mechanics of anything that ran on fuel. But this car was different, and the reason was simple and 2:512 51 seconds reducible. It was the last thing on earth that still connected her to the man who had raised her. Her father had been a private person in the way that 2:592 59 seconds certain men of his generation were private, not cold, not absent, but contained, someone who expressed care through presence and action rather than 3 to 0 83 minutes, 8 seconds declaration. He had mentioned the Ferrari only rarely, and when he did, it was always briefly, and the few things he had said about it stayed with her. 3. 153 minutes, 15 seconds precisely because they were so few. He had told her once that it had been with him a long time. He had told her once that it mattered to him in a way he. 3:233 minutes, 23 seconds could not fully explain. She had not pushed. She had thought, as children always do, that there would be time. There was not. 3. 313 minutes, 31 seconds. Now the car sat in bay number 4 at Meridian, and every Monday morning she stood beside it for a few minutes without knowing what she was waiting for, only that she was not ready to. 3:403 minutes, 40 seconds stop. What she wanted, if she allowed herself to be entirely honest, was to hear the engine, just once. Her father had described that sound once briefly in 3:493 minutes, 49 seconds passing as the thing that made him feel most in the world. She wanted to know what he had meant. She wanted to be in the room when it happened. That Monday. 3:573 minutes, 57 seconds in late October, she stood beside the car longer than usual, her hand resting on the roof, the metal cold beneath her palm. Then she turned and walked out. 4:054 minutes, 5 seconds into the pale morning light and left the Ferrari exactly as it always was, perfect, silent, and completely unreachable. The file on the Ferrari was 4. 144 minutes, 14 seconds thick enough to be mistaken for a legal brief. Evelyn had read every page of it so many times she could recall specific passages without opening it. The chain. 4:224 minutes, 22 seconds off. Failed interventions had begun within weeks of the car's arrival when Cameron, Meridian's senior technician, ran the first diagnostic. Cameron was 47 broad. 4. 324 minutes, 32 seconds shouldered, and wore his 2 decades of experience with European vintage vehicles the way certain men wear expensive watches visibly and often. He. 4:404 minutes, 40 seconds had worked on Maseratis, Alfa Romeo, and more than a dozen historic Ferraris over the course of his career. And when he first examined the 250 GTO, he had 4:494 minutes, 49 seconds spoken with the easy confidence of someone who expected to be finished within a week. He was not finished within a week. He was not finished at 4:574 minutes, 57 seconds all. He ran 3 complete diagnostics over the following month and produced documentation that was meticulous, professionally formatted, and entirely 5:045 minutes, 4 seconds without conclusion. He had theories. He always had theories. None of them led anywhere. Over the 5 years that 115 minutes, 11 seconds followed, Evelyn had brought in 3 Ferrari specialists from Maranello, flown directly from the manufacturer's hometown in northern Italy at a combined 5:195 minutes, 19 seconds cost of more than $400,000 in travel, accommodation, and professional fees. 5:255 minutes, 25 seconds. 2 German engineers who had spent their careers restoring competition-era engines added $60,000 to the ledger and departed having replaced 345 minutes, 34 seconds components, all of which were correct to begin with. A British restoration team arrived with 7 technicians, worked 5:415 minutes, 41 seconds for 6 weeks, replaced 15 parts, and left without making any meaningful progress. 5:465 minutes, 46 seconds. A retired American engineer who had once participated in the restoration of a 250 GT for a private museum in Geneva spent 535 minutes, 53 seconds. 4 days examining the car, asked for 2 more to think, and then politely declined to continue. Each expert produced documentation. Each document 6:016 minutes, 1 second was thorough, technically precise, and ultimately inconclusive. The largest single expenditure had been Adrian. 6 to 0 86 minutes, 8 seconds. Evelyn had flown to Rome specifically to meet him, having been told by two separate sources in the restoration community that he was the only living. 6. 156 minutes, 15 seconds. Technician to have successfully brought 3 separate examples of the 250 GTO back from non-operational states. Adrian. 6:226 minutes, 22 seconds. Was in his mid-50s, quiet-spoken and genuinely distinguished in his field. He arrived at Meridian with 2 assistants. 6:296 minutes, 29 seconds, and a collection of specialized instruments that required their own shipping cases. He spent 3 months on the car. At the end of 3 months, he 386 minutes, 38 seconds submitted a 50-page technical report filled with observations, measurements, and cross-referenced analysis. His conclusion occupied less than a single 6:466 minutes, 46 seconds paragraph, and read in effect as in an admission that he did not understand what he was dealing with. His fee came to $250,000. 6:556 minutes, 55 seconds. The total spent across 5 years landed just below $2 million. What made it genuinely maddening, more than the cost, more than the time, was that every 7:037 minutes, 3 seconds single specialist had reached the same baffling conclusion. The car was in perfect condition, every component was correct, every circuit was intact, every 7:127 minutes, 12 seconds fuel line was clean, every mechanical system checked against factory specification and held. There was nothing wrong with the Ferrari in any 7:197 minutes, 19 seconds diagnosable sense. It simply would not start. It was as if the car had made a decision and no amount of money or expertise could negotiate with it. 7:287 minutes, 28 seconds. Cameron's most recent theory, offered in the tone of a man more interested in protecting his professional reputation than solving the problem, was that there 7 to 367 minutes, 36 seconds might be some form of residual calibration error embedded in the ignition timing. Though he acknowledged in the same breath that the concept made 447 minutes, 44 seconds no physical sense for a vehicle manufactured in 1963 before the era of programmable systems. The theory existed. 7:527 minutes, 52 seconds, mainly because he needed something to say. Evelyn had stopped listening to his theories 18 months ago. What stayed with her was not frustration exactly, though. 8:018 minutes, 1 second. There was plenty of that. It was a feeling closer to the sense that everyone who had touched the car had been asking the wrong questions, that 8:098 minutes, 9 seconds. The answer was somewhere inside it, patient and unmoving, and that no one who had come and gone had been willing to be still enough to find it. Isaac had 8:178 minutes, 17 seconds been at Meridian for 3 months when the story turned. He had been hired as a maintenance and cleaning contractor through a third-party staffing agency. 8:258 minutes, 25 seconds, and his intake paperwork listed no prior automotive industry experience, only a general labor background and a residential address in a part of the 8:338 minutes, 33 seconds city where people did not often land prestigious technical careers. He was 38, lean with the kind of face that was easy to overlook because it gave so. 8:428 minutes, 42 seconds little away. He wore the gray uniform that Meridian required of its maintenance staff, and moved through the garage with the quiet efficiency of 8:508 minutes, 50 seconds. Someone who had learned long ago that invisibility was its own form of freedom. He arrived on time. He did his work without incident, and by the end of 8:598 minutes, 59 seconds, his third week, no one at Meridian had had a substantive conversation with him about anything. What distinguished him, if anyone had been paying close enough? 9. 079 minutes, 7 seconds attention, was his hands. They were not the hands of a man whose primary relationship with physical labor involved pushing a mop across polished 9:159 minutes, 15 seconds floors. The calluses were in the wrong places, or rather in very specific places, the kind that develop from years of sustained contact with 9:239 minutes, 23 seconds precision tools. The joints of his fingers carried old marks from sustained fine work, and no matter how thoroughly he washed them, there remained at the 9:329 minutes, 32 seconds base of his fingernails a faint trace of machine oil that had been absorbed too deeply to fully disappear. Grace, Meridian's front desk coordinator, had noticed this early on, but said nothing. 9:439 minutes, 43 seconds. People carried histories that were not her business to investigate. What Grace had noticed more recently was the way Isaac behaved around the Ferrari. It was 9:519 minutes, 51 seconds not obvious. Nothing about Isaac was obvious, but it was consistent. Whenever his cleaning circuit brought him through bay number 4, he would pause for just 10:0010 minutissa moment longer than necessary. Not staring, not lingering in any way that drew attention, just a brief stillness before he moved on. But the angle of his 10:0910 minutes, 9 seconds gaze was not the angle most people used when they looked at that car. He did not look at the hood the way enthusiasts did, or at the sculpted bodywork the way 10:1610 minutes, 16 seconds admirers did. He looked at the rear wheel arch, at the undercarriage from a low, oblique angle, at the junction 10:2310 minutes, 23 seconds between the frame rail and the firewall, places that only mattered to someone thinking about how a car was built rather than how it looked. 2 weeks. 10:3210 minutes, 32 seconds before the afternoon, everything changed. Cameron had left a technical drawing on his workbench, a detailed cross-section of a V12 engine from the 10:4010 minutes, 40 seconds early 1960s, pulled from an archive reference binder. Isaac, whose cleaning route passed the workbench, had picked 10:4710 minutes, 47 seconds sit up to move it to the side. He had held it for 13 seconds before setting it down. Grace had been watching from across the room and had counted, though. 10:5510 minutes, 55 seconds. She could not have said why. The drawing had been upside down when he picked it up. He had turned it the right way around without thinking. The automatic 11:0411 minutes, 4 seconds correction of someone for whom that orientation was as natural as reading a sentence from left to right. Isaac had arrived in Los Angeles 6 months earlier. 11:1211 minutes, 12 seconds from Turin in northern Italy. What he had been doing in Turin and what had brought him to the other side of the world to work a maintenance contract at 11:2011 minutes, 20 seconds. A luxury automotive garage were questions no one at Meridian had thought to ask. His employment file contained a work authorization, a clean background. 11:2811 minutes, 28 second check, and 2 references that checked out without issue. The staffing agency had not dug further. Cameron had not asked. Evelyn had never been introduced. 3,711 minutes, 37 seconds to him at all. In turn, if one knew where to look, the name Isaac still circulated among a small and close-kept group of retired technical engineers who 11:4611 minutes, 46 seconds had spent their careers working on historic vehicles. It was spoken in a particular way, not loudly, not often, but with a quality of weight that 11:5411 minutes, 54 seconds attached to names people associated with something significant that had ended badly. Whether that ending had been a failure or a punishment depended. 12:0212 minutes, 2 seconds entirely on who was speaking. The people who had worked alongside him described it one way. The people who had worked. 12:0812 minutes, 8 seconds above him described it another. Both groups from their different directions agreed on one thing, that he had been exceptional. None of this was known at 12:17:12 minutes, 17 seconds meridian. Isaac cleaned floors and replaced light bulbs and emptied waste bins, and the Ferrari sat in bay number 4, and 5 years continued to become 5. 12:26:12 minutes, 26 seconds years, and 3 months. The afternoon it broke open was a Friday in early November. Adrian had called Evelyn at 2 o'clock on a video connection, and the 12:35:12 minutes, 35 seconds conversation lasted 11 minutes. He had not called to report progress. He had called because he felt it was his professional obligation to formally 4,212 minutes, 42 seconds communicate what he had come to believe, which was that the problem with the car existed outside the boundaries of what he understood. He did not use the word 12:51:12 minutes, 51 seconds inexplicable. He was too careful and too proud for that. But the sentence he used came close enough that Evelyn felt the 12:58:12 minutes, 58 seconds floor drop slightly beneath her as she heard it. She ended the call, set the phone on the workbench beside the Ferrari, and stood very still for a 13:06:13 minutes, 6 seconds while. The afternoon light came in cold through the high windows and fell across the hood of the car, and the red looked darker than usual, almost brown where 13:15:13 minutes, 15 seconds the shadow reached it. Cameron came in from the back office. He would have said he came to check on a parts order, but his timing was not accidental. He had 2,313 minutes, 23 seconds known about the call, and he moved through the garage door with the practiced ease of a man who has positioned himself for a particular conversation. He stood beside Evelyn for 13:32:13 minutes, 32 seconds a moment, looking at the car, and then said what he had been building toward for the better part of a year. The car had a market value, even in its current 13:41:13 minutes, 41 seconds non-running state, that placed it well above $500,000 at auction. There were collectors who would pay for 13:48:13 minutes, 48 seconds provenance alone. Sometimes knowing when to let something go was the clearest demonstration of good judgment. He said this calmly in the tone of a man. 13:56:13 minutes, 56 seconds offering reasonable counsel, which made it considerably worse. Evelyn did not look at him. She held her gaze on the car for another moment. Then she looked. 14:05:14 minutes, 5 seconds up and across the open space of the garage, she saw Isaac moving along the far wall with his mop, unhurried, making his way around the perimeter the way he 14:13:14 minutes, 13 seconds always did. What happened next was not calculated. She was in almost all circumstances a calculated person. What? 14:20:14 minutes, 20 seconds happened in the following 30 seconds was none of that. It was 5 years of expertise and invoices and polite professional failures accumulating into 2,814 minutes, 28 seconds one unguarded moment. The kind that arrives when the gap between what a person controls and what a person feels finally closes entirely. She turned to 14:37:14 minutes, 37 seconds Cameron and said, 20 years, $2 million, and it's still dead. Then she pointed across the garage at Isaac. What about 14:44:14 minutes, 44 seconds you? Do you know anything about cars? Do you dare even try? Are you going to take my money and disappear like everyone else? The garage went 5,314 minutes, 53 seconds silent. Grace, who had been standing near the front desk, stopped moving. 14:57:14 minutes, 57 seconds. Cameron's expression went through something brief and complicated before settling into a thin smile. The kind that communicated contempt without. 15:0515 minutes, 5 seconds, requiring the directness of saying it aloud. Isaac set his mop against the wall. He looked at Evelyn, not with deference, not with defensiveness, but 15 minutes, 13 seconds, with the level attention of someone who had already decided what they were going to say before they said it. 48 hours, he said. No assistant, no upfront budget. 15:22 15 minutes, 22 seconds. If I fail, you owe me nothing. Evelyn looked at him for a long moment, then without fully understanding why, she said yes. Isaac began at 7 o'clock that 15:31 15 minutes, 31 seconds. Friday evening. He asked for the garage to be cleared, not because he needed privacy, but because he needed silence. 15:38 15 minutes, 38 seconds. Cameron left with visible reluctance, his footsteps deliberate and slow in the manner of a man performing his exit. 15:45 15 minutes, 45 seconds. Grace turned off the front desk leg.